What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. Today, we have another fantastic coach in the building. We have head coach of the Wakefield High School basketball program, Coach Tony Bentley, in the house, man. A phenomenal person, leader, just a man of integrity and respect, and just a great basketball mind. But tonight, we're going to learn a lot more about him besides basketball. We're going to talk about his legacy and the impact he's had in Northern Virginia, especially in his hometown of Arlington, Virginia. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good, Dwight, man. It's an honor, man, and a privilege to be on your show. Been following you and watching your show, and some of the guys that's been on. Ooh, it's tough to follow behind, man. So appreciate you having me on, man. Really do.
No, I appreciate you jumping on, man. And
Yes, sir.
when I let people know on social media, man, literally, when I do the preview of who's coming up next and I tagged you in the post, man, within seconds, I had almost 200 likes and comments. I felt like I had somebody an ACC legend on here, man. You have had quite the impact, man.
You know what it is. Before you sent that out, I called up a lot of people and sent $10 cash app everybody, so they can make it look good for me, man. I
Nah,
appreciate the people, though.
nah, don't minimize this. It's amazing, man. And you have an impressive bio. You have an impressive body of work. But before we talk about your coaching accomplishments and all the great players you coach and the legacy and standard you created at your high school, let's talk about like where it all started for you. You are from the 703. You're a Northern Virginia guy, and I'm a Tidewater guy. We both proud Virginians.
Absolutely.
And as you and I have become friends here in the last several months, during quarantine, um, I shared with you how when I moved to Northern Virginia decades ago, my wife was from up here. I realized there was so much talent and great people in this region,
Yeah.
and you definitely fit that standard. And you have grown up here. You've seen Arlington grow into
Yeah.
a city that if you drive through Arlington, it doesn't look like Virginia.
Right. Right.
But let's
Yeah.
talk about where it all started, man. Like, what Arlington growing up, what was it like back in the day, and the challenges you faced, the good memories, the positive memories, the bad things, all that
Yeah.
stuff. What was it like?
It's kind of hard to start off. I mean, man, back in the day, I grew up in Green Valley.
Hmm.
And a lot of guys from Arlington know what Green Valley is. South Arlington, it's a part of the community that I grew up in, and it was back in those days, man, in the '70s, it was families took care of each other. I knew everybody on my street, and not just my street, but in the neighborhood. So if I did anything wrong, before I made it to the top of my hill where my house was, 2028 South Lowell Street, before I made it home, man, I had already got spankings from Miss Taylor, the Barnes family, the Bullocks, whoever it was, the Rayford family. They took care of you before you got home, and it was a family atmosphere where nowadays a little bit different. You can barely talk to a kid if they're doing something wrong, but back then other parents and people in the neighborhood took care of you, and I think that's one thing that's so special about Green Valley and Arlington is, like you said, when you put it out today, so many people said, "Hey, good luck," this because those are still the family people in our community, man. That is special. And just starting off with that, I was raised by my grandparents,
Oh,
and
okay.
a lot of people say I had my mother, I didn't have my father. Well, I was fortunate enough to have two parents in the home. They happened to be my grandparents, and they were old school.
Hmm.
We got what we needed, not what we
Hmm.
wanted.
Hmm.
And that taught me a lot of value about certain things and not necessarily worrying about the clothes and things like that, man. Just hard work. I watched my grandmother work for 25 years for Marriott Hot Shops. She was a retired cook, and then my granddad worked in Wagon Works down in Alexandria and at a car place, fixing cars. So I watched them every single day come home and work hard. So that instilled in me the hard value of work. And then again, with our community, man, it started out with playing sports and, being with my grandmother. And I was small. I'm still small now, but my grandmother didn't really want me playing football at the time. And I really wanted to play football. And by the time I hit 7, I was ready to play basketball, but you had to be 8 years old to play. And so
Mm.
a good friend of mine started coaching this basketball team, Red Top Cab. And we sponsored
Wow.
my red top cab, man. And Carlton Newton was my first ever coach. And I was 7 years old and you had to be 8, but I can handle the ball a little bit, a little bit before AI, wasn't no
Yeah.
crossover, just was faster than everybody. And I started playing basketball. Of course, I was the shortest guy on the court. And back then, your position was by your height. So the shortest guy was the point guard, the
Yep.
biggest guy was the center.
Yep.
So I fell in love with that, and being a point guard at that age, all I did was pass the ball to the best players, and they did the scoring. So everybody liked me because I gave them the ball. So I fell in love with basketball from that time, man. And then finally, when I hit 10 years old, my grandmother let me play football, and that changed me, man. Because everybody knows me as the basketball coach at Wakefield. Football was my love, man. And I started off in Little League as check this out, D. My first position was I was a guard. I was 56 pounds and I was a guard. And then on defense, I was a defensive lineman. And one day, I got to tell the story because one day they was throwing the ball and I dropped back and went for the interception. And I got the interception and I took it to the house. And after that game, my coach said, "We moving you to running back."
Wow. So
Yeah.
this is what, man. This is why I love doing the legacy spotlights because, as you know, I interviewed Coach Sherman Rivers.
Yeah.
Another phenomenal coach at Patriot High School in Gainesville, Virginia, Nokesville, and same thing like you, football.
Yeah.
He was a quarterback, and here I am, 6'4", 6'5", 300 and some pounds, and my first love, and still is
It's
basketball.
basketball, yeah.
That's
Well,
just crazy.
we always want what we can't have.
Yeah, yeah.
I always say if I was 6'2", I wouldn't be around here. But then again, if I was 6'5", so you always don't want what you have, man.
That's
So, and
crazy.
I think too, to like Sherman's point nowadays, I remember I listened to your show with Sherman. A lot of these guys now are specialty guys. They
Yes,
just doing
yes,
basketball. They
yes.
just doing football. We didn't. I
No.
played football, I played basketball, and we did everything. And we didn't have all the AAUs and all that stuff. It was year round. And the same thing, like Sherman said, I learned my best basketball from playing down in the valley, where you played against older guys, and they beat you up, but they also put their arm around you and told you, "Look here, young fella, this is what you need to do to survive and advance." And so when I grew up playing basketball, I was at Drew Elementary School, but in the
Okay.
evenings it came into a community center. And all my guys that's watching this, man, they know. Trust me, the guys my age, Drew, before they tore it down and made a new Drew, they had two sides. There was a red side and a white side. And the red side was for all the young guys. And you would be looking, and you look over to the white side was where all the teenagers and the older guys was playing. And as a 10, 11-year-old kid, man, you holding your ball in your arm and you just looking over on the white side, and you just wanted to hurry up and play on that white side. And what made me was never what I did in my high school career, or never it was I got an opportunity to play on the white side, man, against the older guys. And that changed me, man, because I was able to hang in there with the older guys, being quick and fast. And of course, sharing the basketball. Everybody wanted somebody to pass the ball.
Sir.
It changed me growing up, because then those 16 and 17-year-old guys that was playing high school basketball, when I was in middle school playing against those guys, was telling me, "You got a chance to do this and do that." So that just bred in our neighborhood, man. And we the Green Valley, man, we got some guys that were some phenomenal athletes. And some you may not have even heard of, and some that you have. But the fact is that was a community, man, that we all looked out for each other, man. And I'm so proud to be from Green Valley.
So Tony, tell me about, I'm glad you actually bringing up a good point about so many guys you never heard of, and that's why I like doing these legacy spotlights. I don't expect you to remember everybody, but tell me a few guys, even though I didn't grow up here with you, for the people that are going to watch this and that see this, that, as you reflect, name a couple of guys when you say, "Hey, Vic, D, this guy right here, if he had gotten a chance, he would have been special. He did this." Like, who comes to mind, like an OG ahead of you or somebody even in your age group?
Yeah. Again, the guys that's watching this show, there was a guy, man, that I grew up with. He's a little bit older, not much, but a little bit older. His name was Damian Harris. And Damian Harris was every bit of 5'9", 5'10", and he could scratch his knees standing straight up. Long arms, and like, again, wasn't big, but I've never seen, even to this day, I've seen NBA players. Damian Harris was a guy that I was like, I've never seen anybody jump as high as him, stay in the air. The things that he could do was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I really can't remember exactly what happened. Damian's high school career didn't pan out or whatever it may be. I don't even want to get into it, but I just know
definitely.
watching Damian grow up, man, what, you know, I never seen any athleticism like that in my life. And then to name a few guys that I know that did play and did go on to do some things, a guy that I always idolized when I was growing up was Joe Lowe. Joe Lowe played at Wakefield High School. He graduated in '87. Was probably the smoothest dude I had ever seen. And again, we talk about basketball, but this dude was the baddest quarterback I had ever seen. They ran the option at Wakefield, and I never seen a guy come down the line with the ball in his hands like this and turn that corner and get hit by a linebacker and then pitch it as he's getting hitched. And Joe Lowe was that guy. A lot of us my age growing up. I know that sounds crazy because Joe Lowe ain't that much older than me, but we all looked up to Joe Lowe, man. But there was guys, my cousin Jackie Moore, who played at WNL. I'm sorry, let me go back. Joe Lowe, after he graduated from Wakefield, he went and played basketball at Longwood, had a good 4-year career at Longwood.
Okay.
My cousin Jackie Moore was a high flyer who played at WNL, and he went on to play at James Madison. Then there was guys, you know, that I ended up having to coach or coach against. Tony Stanley comes to mind as one of the best players that I've ever had an opportunity to be a part of. I wasn't the head coach, but I was an assistant coach when Tony Stanley came to Washington League, and he went on to play at Dayton University. And if I'm not mistaken, Tony's like 44, 43 years old now, and he just finished his professional career overseas.
Awesome, man.
Wakefield had a guy that everybody knows, Kenny Staten. Kenny Staten,
I have heard of him.
Could fill it up, my man. Let me tell you, when I say 50 points a night with ease.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I can go down the list of guys, and I know I'm gonna get in trouble because Arlington is small. If I don't mention somebody, man, I'm gonna get in trouble. But you know, those are the guys that just come to mind right now, as past and present. A lot of good talent that came out of Arlington, Virginia.
That's awesome, man. And you know, I just love hearing guys like yourself talk about that, because again, it's good to reflect and also remind people that this person now wasn't the first one.
Yeah.
My dad did that to me growing up when you talk about Iverson in my generation, Aaron Brooks and all the different guys. And he was like, let me tell you about these guys way before you. But I wasn't one of those youngins that dismissed it. I enjoyed those stories like I enjoy it right now.
Yes.
So, you know, Tony, Coach, you talk about, you know, the Valley, the toughness, the grind, the camaraderie, the chemistry that you guys had, you know, just being in that environment, which I love. You know, it's the same way where I'm from. That's the beauty of that time, that era. But, you know, things change. But for you, as you're growing up, you know, you talked about you being a football player. You know, most people know you as a hooper, but you also played football. What happened next as you got older? You know, was it middle school? You continued on that journey, that trajectory of football, or was it, when did basketball come into the fray, and was it high school? What happened?
For me, it was always side by side.
Yep.
Basketball, football went hand in hand, and you know, so I concentrated on both. And at that time, you asked me, what did I like better? Well, if it was basketball season, I like basketball better. When it was football season, I like football season better. And that was just the way it was. And then, so again, with my neighborhood being the way it was, the toughness that we had, as you know, in the 80s, man, crack cocaine came in and destroyed lots of neighborhoods. And Arlington County was no different. You know, it's a beautiful place, but drugs came in, man. And you can ask about several players that, you know, I may not even mention that could have made it, but because that fast life, the hustlers, you know, the cars, the money, the girls, man. Of course, in the 80s, it was cool, but I went to a program. I went to a program. John Robinson was our neighborhood leader. God rest his soul. He took me and about 14 kids to a Scared Straight program, just like on TV. We went down to Richmond.
You been the one?
Listen, let me tell you right now, my man, changed my life. I was 14 years old, maybe 13, and I was on that cusp of, what do I really want to do? Am I going to pursue this sports thing, or am I going to go over here with my boys and do this drug thing?
Yeah.
And we keep it real on your show. I was $25 away from selling drugs.
Really?
A friend in my neighborhood said, listen, I got a cousin. If we all come up with $25 each tomorrow, we go give him $100, like 4 of us. We give him $100, we can get started. Man, as I was raised by my grandparents, it was on a fixed income. I couldn't get 25 cents to go to the swimming pool on Wednesdays. So I couldn't come up with the $25, man. And
That's
so
crazy though.
those guys went on, man. Couple of those guys went on to do what they did, but switching back, I went to that Scared Straight program, and I was 14 years old, 5'1", 100 pounds. And I'm looking at them dudes in there, man, and they giving it to you real, giving it to you straight. I said, there's no way I could survive in an environment like this. And then, I've seen my friends, I've seen, my father, my uncles, my cousins, in and out. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I just said, I've got to figure this thing out. I got to play sports. So sports was the driving issue for me. I had to play sports. I had to be involved with it somehow. And so, by middle school, again, there was no Allen Iverson crossovers. We made one move and we was by you. And I had speed, and that was football, that was basketball. So I really took to that. And so by the time I got to high school, because I had a really good football career, my 4 years of football, 10 years old to 14, we won the championship. Shout out to my Bulldogs out there, Arlington Bulldogs. We won the championship 4 years in a row. And here's where we talked about a little bit off camera, D, where all of our guys, we played Little League football together. We won 4 years in a row championship. By the time we got to high school, they separated all of us.
Is that they separated y'all?
Separated.
Was that the whole thing? Because again, I didn't grow up here.
Yeah.
And I know Remember the Titans is based on a true story.
Yes.
But was that same time frame where they were rezoning and integrating, or is that just because the area was growing?
Now, D, don't make me come across the screen, man. I wasn't in high school in 1971.
No, I'm talking about as far as,
but yeah.
Yeah, but that was going on in
Yes.
Virginia, not just that year, but I'm talking about with Alexandria and all the integration that was going on in Northern Virginia.
Yeah. So the Valley is predominantly Black. It was predominantly Black. So what they did was busting. They sent so many of us to Washington Lee, and then so many of us to Yorktown on the north side, where I was catching my bus to go to Washington Lee in the morning, going past Wakefield, which is crazy. But so what it did was it broke us up as far as when we played Little League together. I lived at the top of Lowe, and at the bottom of Lowe, I went to Washington Lee. My buddies went to Yorktown. Right down the street, my best friend lived. He went to Wakefield. So we were all in the same neighborhood, but having to compete against each other for sports, where all our youth life, we competed together. So it made it tough for us. Where, you wanted the bragging rights, but we also talk about, man, if all of us had that opportunity to play together at a high school, man, what could have happened? Now, we also talk about what could have happened. There have been a lot of people sitting on the bench. I might have been one of them. But the fact that we would have had so much talent at one high school, man. I can name some guys, man, that came along in the same era that we all had to play against each other. It would have been crazy if we'd all stuck in, at one high school. But things were different back in the late 80s.
Coach, I want to ask you this. You mentioned about, this is Allen Iverson's crossover didn't exist. But don't dismiss the fact that there was talent, as you mentioned. There was some dogs up here that time. But I want to ask you a personal question. Like, everybody has, you mentioned Mr. Robinson, that took all you guys in under your wing. But I want to talk about, in the sports aspect, from that time frame, who were you looking at? Who were you checking for? When of course, now we have satellite TV, direct TV, cell phones, all access, ESPN 1, 2, 3, the Ocho and all that. However, we still had cable and television, and we had magazines. Who did you not so much aspire to be, but you say, hey, I love this guy. Isaiah Thomas is somebody I check for, or this guy. Was it someone in college? I know you mentioned the OGs ahead of you. What about from a professional or collegiate level? Who'd you check for?
From that, growing up in that time, man, the 76ers and the Lakers and the Celtics. That was it. The Bullets was right as I was getting, 7 or 8 years old. They won a championship in 76, if I'm not mistaken. But I wasn't that home team guy just yet. I was the guy searching for the superstars. So Dr. J was everything to me. Magic Johnson was great, but again, Magic was 6'9", so I was always looking for somebody. So my nickname, I had several nicknames, as you can imagine. I was one of the only light-skinned kids growing up in my neighborhood, and I had a big blonde curly bush. And so I had plenty of nicknames that some people still call me to this day. Well, we won't say those on here. But you know, one of my nicknames that still sticks with me to this day is Mo Cheeks.
Really?
Because that's who I aspired to be. I wore number 10 when I was younger, and I loved everything about Mo Cheeks. You know, I got some guys that say, "Hey, Cheeks." They call me Cheeks, you know, because of Mo Cheeks. And a lot of people, you know, Dr. J, Michael Jordan, yeah, but Mo Cheeks is my man, to see what Mo Cheeks did. And then how for real is that it came to light later that I was emulating Mo Cheeks throughout my career. And then Mo Cheeks goes off and has a great career, and then he becomes a coach.
Yep.
You know, and I know I may be segueing into that, but I mean, it's like, you know, once I realized, D, that I woke up one morning, I looked in the mirror, and I was 5'6", and I stopped growing.
Yeah.
The possibilities of me trying to make it to that, you have to be special to be 5'6" to think you're gonna make it anywhere. You know, and that's not a knock on.
No, you're being honest. You're being honest.
But I'm being, and I had to be honest. When you talk about a Muggsy Bogues or a Spud Webb, those guys were special. You know, you know, it's not so many people like that. So I came to realization that it was going to be that way for me. And I talked to you a little bit about off air. You know, I played high school football, and all through my career, I was a running back. And then what happened my sophomore year was like, you know what? I'm still 5'6", 125 pounds. I'm not taking that beating, my man. So I shifted out, went on to the wing. I said, you can't hit what you can't catch.
No doubt.
So I became a wide receiver, and I had a good high school career, nothing spectacular or anything like that, respectable. And I thought that I was going to go to Norfolk State, behold the green and gold.
No
I was
question.
going to go to Norfolk State, man, because my you know, I call him my cousin, but at the time, Eric Steele was at Norfolk State. And he was a wide receiver. He played at Wakefield as well, too, man. And he went to Norfolk State. And I would go see him play at Norfolk State. And I had never seen anything like him on the football field. But not only that, D.Y., I can tell you, Vic, I can tell you this, is I went to a Norfolk football game. And here in Arlington, when we at the high school football games, at halftime, everybody left and went to go get something to eat.
Oh, no.
Well, listen, my man,
No.
as like a 10th grader in high school, my first experience going over to Norfolk State, and back then Norfolk State didn't have a football field. They had the scope. I mean, not the scope. I'm sorry. Over at ODU.
ODU's field.
That was Norfolk State's home stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So we go down, and I'm at the game, and I mean, it is excitement like I had never seen before. And all of a sudden, it was halftime, and I jump up. I'm like, man, I'm going to get something to eat. Everybody's like, you better not leave. It's like, well, it's halftime. Man, all of a sudden that band popped out there. That was it. And I knew from that moment I wanted to go to a HBCU. It was nothing like it from, you know, being here in Northern Virginia and we got spirit. How about you? Nah, when you went down there, my man, it was a total different atmosphere. So
yeah, well, you know, I know all about it.
I know.
It's interesting, man, you know, because I grew up going to the Battle of the Bay. My mom
man.
My mom's a graduate. This is your legacy spotlight, but just
that's all right.
She's a graduate of Hampton University. My dad is a graduate of Norfolk State. They're undergraduate, and she went there when Hampton University was HI.
Yep.
So I grew up going to the Battle of the Bay, and even the games against Virginia State and Virginia Union, the CIAA, and going to getting the fish sandwiches wrapped in aluminum foil.
Yes, sir.
You know, the step shows, and I mean, I literally grew up around that. You know, so I know the euphoria and nostalgia that surrounds that culture. And you know what? As far as, and I know you've talked about this, Sherm, and a lot of coaches in your fraternity of high school and college coaches. You know, college is a privilege, it's an honor, but HBCUs have something to offer. They do, and even though I'm a Virginia Tech proud graduate,
yes,
I tell anyone and everyone, you know, they have a lot to offer. And I'm glad you mentioned, you know, we'll talk a little bit about that, you know, your time in Norfolk State, but I'm glad you mentioned that, of, you know, how that captivated you, and how it felt to be around that.
And I never cut you off. I just think that, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have the counselors to really tell us about HBCU. You know, and a lot of us, you know, Black kids, that if our grades weren't where they, you know, probably should have been or whatever, you know, they wanted to force us to go to the community college, which, trust me, there's nothing wrong with going to community college, but they never really at that time talked to us about the different HBCUs out there that would have gave us an opportunity. And so I was fortunate enough because, you know, like I said, Eric Steele was at Norfolk State. My cousin who played softball at Norfolk State and graduated, I was able to experience some of that lifestyle. So I'm just hoping that, now some of these counselors are letting these kids know, because like we talked about it, growing up, all we heard, was Georgetown, Maryland, Duke, Kentucky. Most of the kids can't go to those schools, man, to play ball. But there's so many different schools out here. And I
Yeah.
think that's becoming a coach has helped me get kids into schools that possibly some of the parents have never even heard about, but there's schools that's giving money away, scholarships away. It might not be Georgetown or Maryland or Duke or whatever, but at the end game is let's get that degree. And so that was the biggest thing about me becoming a coach and giving back to the community is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job at that. I want to ask you about this, and I love asking this question, especially when I talk to guys that are from different parts of Virginia or Maryland or DC or even New York or whatever. For you growing up here, you mentioned Wakefield and high school in the Valley, but I want to know about some of those Friday night lights or those Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday afternoons and evenings in basketball and football rivalries.
Yeah.
Tell me about, hey Vic, when we played this team, it was for on like it was even after the game they knew it was on, like before, tell me about, because again, you've heard me talk about and other people who you work with, the Crabbers, talk about Hampton and Phoebus and Bethel and
Yeah.
going across the water against Deep Creek and Norcom. We have that in the eastern region, and Richmond has Byrd and Hermitage. Every jurisdiction in the
Yeah.
region here in Prince William is Unity Reed and Patriot. Tell me about y'all rivalries, your nights, those Friday night lights or those Tuesday nights in the gym when you said, "Hey D, they had this guy," or we knew it was on, and it was standing room only. Were there
Yeah.
some rivalries like that for you?
Definitely. And so again, I went to Washington Lee, and at the time, our biggest rival was South Lakes. And as you know, Grant Hill was at South Lakes,
Mm-hmm.
and we're the same age. We played against each other. But when Grant was a freshman and sophomore, he was, not his sophomore year, but his freshman year, he was just a big kid getting rebounds because there was a guy on the team by the name of Jerome Scott.
Oh,
Jerome
yes,
Scott
yes.
could flat get it done. And I think he went to Miami, played at Miami University. But Jerome Scott was the featured guy on that team. Now, we had at WNL Crawford Palmer, who went to Duke. And we also had a guard by the name of Warren Doles, who's doing big things in our community now. And again, my cousin Jackie Moore. Those games were standing room only. And South Lakes had one of the biggest gyms around. You couldn't get a seat in there. And my sophomore year, Grant was on the varsity. I was JV just finishing up. And, thank God I was on the JV team because I wouldn't got a seat in the place. That's how packed it was. And, those rivals between WNL and South Lakes, Grant Hill scored the last 16 points of that game. And the last play was an alley-oop dunk for the win. So the rivalries and things that they had back in those days. And then the Washington Lee and Yorktown rivalry is nothing like it. Wakefield, I would say, I don't even know who Wakefield's rivalry really would be. Even though we're in Arlington, Wakefield's rival never really was WNL or Yorktown. It may have been TC Williams, but back in the day, they wouldn't let Wakefield and TC Williams play because of the fights. Alexandria and Arlington, oh man, you couldn't go nowhere. And that started back in the days where there was just two black high schools. Hoffman Boston was the black high school in Arlington, and Parker Gray was the black high school in Alexandria.
I love this.
Bragging rights, my man. Let me tell you, and when I got the job at Wakefield, I know if you remember Ivan Thomas. Ivan Thomas was the head coach at TC Williams.
Yep.
And we talked about doing like an alumni game honoring Parker Gray and Hoffman Boston. So we went out and got uniforms to replicate Hoffman Boston and Parker Gray. We put the last names of the guys on the back from the 1964 team, the 1955 team. We invited the families to come and we battled. The night before the game, Hoffman Boston was having their reunion, like 60th class reunion. Everybody in this place is older than my parents. They were my grandparents' age. And they gave me the mic to go up and speak and let them know that we were having a game, Hoffman Boston versus Parker Gray. Let me tell you, when I said we were playing as Hoffman Boston against Parker Gray, you should have seen all those people stand up with their canes. They was ready to fight right there. And this 60 years later, the rivalry between that was so good, man. It was amazing. It was amazing what we started, and we kind of got away from it. but that Arlington Alexandria rival is still there. You know how you guys with Hampton, you can't find a TC Williams guy right now that's gonna say anything bad about TC. Those guys are TC red, white, and blue to the end, and you respect that. Respect the TC Williams guys.
I love hearing this. I mean, you can't tell. I'm getting chills. I love hearing this history because this needs to be told, as well as, you know, me, I've been in Northern Virginia for 20 years, but I still don't know all this information. And this is also crazy to me because you mentioned TC Williams because of the movie and everything. And also because when I was a youngin', I'm a few years behind you, but Hampton High and TC Williams had legendary battles in the state championships in football.
Yes.
And I remember when I was in middle school, we had a guy by the name of Eric Hunter, was a parade All-American. He would tell us, because he came back to help coach us in basketball as an assistant, he was like, TC Williams and Alexandria and Arlington were a lot like us. The mindset, the Valley, you guys, and that's so funny because we're hours away, but he would tell us like the physicality and the mindset, the cultural, the way we live was very similar. We just, it was just our area is a little bit bigger. But how you mentioned TC, the Alexandria and Arlington rivalry, that sounds a lot like Hampton and Newport News.
Yes.
You know,
And is that close? Now you know we got a mutual friend with Sherwood Jones.
Yes.
And Keith Powell. These guys are Hampton Crabbers for life, man. And they've told me stories about that time they played against TC Williams in the state championship. Hampton always punked everybody.
We did.
Well, they got to the state championship game and they was doing their little routine y'all do when you come out the locker room. And the TC Williams guys didn't budge. And Sherwood said, "Oh, we in trouble tonight."
You know, and that's what I heard. I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
But
True story.
No, that is a very true story. And this is your legacy spotlight. We'll talk about that when we hang out because there's a lot of stories behind that. But let me ask you this though, man. And this is good because you saw it firsthand versus me, you know, finding these videos. How good. I was always and still am a huge fan of Grant Hill, the player and the person. I don't know him. I was around him a few times, but I love just who he is. But I always felt post-Duke career, even though he had a great career other than the injuries that really hampered him, he doesn't get the credit. But you saw him. How good was he? How good was he?
So good, man, that he could have went to any private school, he stayed, man, at his local high school at South Lakes High School. You know, nowadays kids aren't doing that.
No.
Kids are going, they bolting for the next, you know, big thing. And Grant stayed, and you know, he played under the legendary coach Wendell Bird. And I had the opportunity of playing against Grant. And then when I became a coach, I learned a lot from Wendell Bird. So I started going and working Wendell Bird's basketball camps. Well, of course, the relationship that Grant Hill and Wendell Bird have, that in 1999, Grant Hill told Wendell Bird he wanted to run some camps in the Detroit area and wanted Coach Bird to bring his staff up to run the camps. So we all flew up to Detroit. We worked basketball camp for 2 weeks up at Detroit Country Day, which is the high school. Chris Webber, Shane Battier.
Yes, that's right.
Those guys went to that school. So Grant took care of us, man. Like we went up, we worked hard all day long, then had a good time at night. He's true to his form. He's not a guy that had a camp that he showed up in the morning, gave a speech, and then showed back up on Friday. He was at camp running the clocks with us, refereeing, doing all the things, man, that you want to do. And he took care of us. He's always been that way. I've never, you know, and I've known him off the court and things like that. He's always been the same guy. And I remember running into him one time. We were in the airport. He was on his way. He had just got back from his appointment with he had the screw in his foot. Well, he almost died. He had a staph infection that everyone thought he was sitting out, he was faking or what. That's not Grant, man. And he showed me in the airport his x-rays. I couldn't believe he was even walking, you know, and for him to try to make that comeback that he did, he played in Phoenix and things like that. Grant's always been an upstanding guy, a great guy in the community that, you know, we all have looked up to, jealous, envy. It's all he had the whole package. 6'8", could play point guard. And let me tell you this quick story. So my senior year, we were going. So Grant Hill, we playing South Lakes versus WNL, first game of the season. I'm a senior point guard, and all of a sudden we hear weeks before that, you know, Grant signed with Duke, and Coach K had told Wendell Bird, "We want you to move Grant Hill to the point because he needs to handle the ball more when he gets to Duke." Okay, well, here I'm 5'6". At the time, he was 6'6". I'm going up against Grant Hill. So I said, listen, this one I knew I was gonna be a coach one day. I said, ain't no way I can guard this dude, coach. We better play a 1-3-1 or some kind of zone because I can't guard this dude, man. So, the rivalries on the court and battling, they killed us and all of that good stuff. But being able to say that, I played against a Grant Hill in basketball. And then in football, let me tell you, man, you might know this. I played against Charlie Garner, who
Animal.
oh man,
Animal.
let me tell you,
Animal.
this is the thing where I love this, and I wish these kids would understand more to go back in history to see guys that were Charlie Garner was special. Hey, look, D Vic, I can talk to you all night, but my high school coach, we're playing against Jeb Stewart. That's where Charlie Garner went, and my high school coach was the PE teacher. So PE class, we didn't do nothing. You know what we did all day long? Getting ready for Charlie Garner that night. This was before turf fields and all this fancy stuff they got in there. My coach ran the sprinklers all day long to try to make them. He didn't care about us. He wanted Charlie Garner to not be able to run in the mud. It's a beautiful October night, and the field you walk onto is just squishy. He thought that was going to slow Charlie Garner down. Charlie Garner had 250 yards at halftime and didn't play the floor. He was that special. And listen, I beat Charlie on an out pattern, a 10-yard out. I had him beat. I stepped inside and I broke outside. All the quarterback had to do was put it on the money. Charlie was a step behind. Man, I don't know where he came from. He was a hell of a DB. He was all-state DB, all-state punt returner, kick returner, running back.
He was special.
All everything, man. So we had an opportunity to play against some good guys, back night in and night out. There was a battle. There was somebody on the opposing team that was D1, D whatever, and you had to be ready every single night.
No question. I love hearing that, man. And I forgot about Gardner, and that's why I'm saying it's good to remember that. So Tony, you're in high school. They wouldn't let you go to, because back then it was different. They wouldn't let you go to Wakefield.
Right.
And, so you mentioned earlier how you went to Norfolk State, and when you were in 10th grade, you fell in love with the culture and the environment. And what made that, besides just the environment and the culture? Did you have any other options with any of the schools, or you knew? Did any of the schools show interest, or was it were you visiting? Now guys take 5-10 visits.
Yeah.
You're not an athlete. You take visits. And was Norfolk State definitely the top choice after 10th grade to continue?
For me, I wanted to always go to Norfolk State. Yeah, I wanted to follow my buddy Eric Steele and try to be that receiver, but realistically, it wasn't going to pan out for me. And I had some smaller schools, Bridgewater, that, I could have went to play football. I didn't have any looks in basketball. And I'm keep it real on your show. And it was a football thing for me. And once I decided or realized that next level wasn't going to be for me, I said, what can I do to stay involved? Because I was one of those guys that if I wasn't involved, I wasn't going to get good grades. I wasn't going to class. I wanted to stay involved. So when I came back home, man, my high school coach at the time, my senior year in basketball was John Phillips. And Coach Phillips came to Washington 1 year, my senior year. He stayed like 3 years. But he came and found out that I was home from school. And he said, listen, man, your whole season with me, you were practically a coach on the court. And have you thought about coaching? And I said, absolutely. And he said, I want you to come and coach here. And what player wouldn't want to coach at their alma mater?
Yes.
And so Coach Phillips was the guy who gave me an opportunity to be me. And my first year, Dwight, we had 9 players on the varsity team, and I was young, I was in shape, I was the 10th man. I practiced every single day with the team on the second unit, and we pushed that first unit every single day. I was a little bit older, a little bit stronger, but not much. I mean, but I had the old head mentality. I talk trash, get them out their games and stuff like that. I got to a point where I didn't even know that I was coaching. I was having so much fun. I don't even remember signing a contract. I think Coach Phillips may have gave me $400 out of his check. And I didn't even care about any money. I just wanted to be involved. And from there, after that, my first year of coaching, I was just a varsity assistant. After that, Coach Phillips said, listen, I want you to be the head coach of the freshman team. So I coached the freshman team for 2 years. And, on the freshman level, we went, 14-2 and 15-1 those 2 years. And then Coach Phillips stepped down. Now I'm about 23, 22, 24 years old, something like that. And the varsity job is open. I did well on the freshman levels. You need to apply. I wasn't ready. I knew
Really?
that
You weren't?
no, not at 22, 23 years old,
Well,
man.
I just say that because now, guys, they think that God's gifted coaching just like
And
players do.
and you go back and you look at those guys that maybe have given that opportunity that didn't take it seriously and no longer coaching or whatever it may be. I knew that if I ever was going to be a head coach, that I would have to really do a lot more. In the freshman level from the varsity level. And when you coach freshmen, it's all, and I tell my freshman coach now, it's all about getting these kids involved in Wakefield, letting them be in a part of something. I'm not so much worried about winning games or things like that. Let's let these kids be a part of something, and you learn that way. So as a freshman coach, I was having fun with the guys, getting them acclimated to high school. Then after that, so I didn't end up even applying for the job. Thankful that I didn't, because my guy, my mentor, who now is Bobby Dobson, who applied for the job in 1993. And I was just so thankful that he didn't have too many guys in his circle at the time. And he still doesn't, trust me. He didn't. And he kept me on. We sat down and we had a meeting. He knew I was a WNL guy. He kept me on, and he moved me up to the JV. And then I was his assistant coach on varsity. And that went on for 9 years. We coached together at WNL, and we had some teams, man, that was phenomenal. We sent kids. Coach Dobson sent a lot of kids off to college, and I was privileged to see how he ran a program, because I hadn't seen that before. Because my first 2 years I was coaching freshmen, and so my games were at 4:00 or whatever it may be, and I might go home, and I didn't stay for the varsity games or whatever it may be. I wasn't ready. And so with under Coach Dobson, I started going to clinics, and preparing myself. But also too, while that was going on, I was coaching basketball at WNL. I was also coaching football. So my high school football coach, Joe Muskett at the time, saw me coach a basketball game at the school. And he was like, yo, I want you to become my JV football coach, head coach. I was like, oh, coach, I know football, but I don't know. You're going to be my head JV coach. So I'm coaching. I'm the head JV coach and the head JV basketball coach, football and basketball, for 8 years together. And it was okay, because I wasn't the varsity coach. So I could do both, because now, off season workouts, all that, you can't do that now. And
No,
so
I was getting ready to say that's
no,
yeah.
you couldn't do it. But at a younger level, I could. So in 1999, I tell you, man, I love football so much that I wanted to continue coaching football, but I had to make a decision, because I was getting at the point where I was feeling like I could run my own program, whether it's going to be football or basketball. And so I remember in about 98 or whatever, it was a cold night, and I was that guy, I was varsity assistant coach, wide receiver coach, and a couple of nights I had to go up top with the headphones on and, tell the coach what I see and all that good stuff. Well, it's about, I don't know, 17, 18 degrees, one of those late October nights, and it's like a tie ball game, and coach like, Coach, what you see? I said, listen, man, you better go for it. If we get it out, I'm ready to get up out of here. It was too cold. That's when I made up my mind. I can't coach football. I'm done. So I was done. So I really, dove into coaching basketball. So I actually retired myself. I bought myself a plaque with my picture on it, and it said 1992 to 1999 football coach at WNL. Done.
Real talk. You did that?
I if I had it with me, I would show you right now. I put it on the wall to remind myself I was done, because I still got it in me. I would like our football coach at Wakefield right now, Wayne Hogwood, one of the best coaches, brightest minds. He still asks me to this day, you want to coach freshmen? And he knows he tugs on me, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I can't, because I had no off season. So I had to retire myself. And so then from there, I just dove into really coaching basketball. We went to clinics and started getting, and then Lord and behold, man, you couldn't have written it any better. In 2002, the coach who was at Wakefield for 31 years, legend, Bob Velgen, was a legend at Wakefield, man. Anybody who gives up 31 years of their life to something, to a school, to a program,
Yes.
it is a legend. You know what I mean? And so I have nothing but and to think that in the 80s, all I ever wanted to do was go to Wakefield and do the Wakefield stomp. You don't know about that, Vic. They got the Wakefield stomp.
What is that? Yeah, I don't.
They got the Wakefield stomp. That's all I ever wanted to do, man. And I couldn't, because of the generation and the time. 2002 swing around, I have an opportunity to interview, to coach at Wakefield. And, I felt like I was ready, And the interview went great. And when I got the call from the then AD, Miss Deskins, who, thank the Lord for Miss Deskins, who hired me back then, gave me an opportunity, man. I was like 31 years old. You know,
Still
had
young, still
so
young.
much to learn. Yeah, so much to learn. But I had felt like I did it the right way. You know, I started JV, I'm freshman, JV, and now here's my turn to run my own program. So I took a lot of things from Coach Dobson. I took a lot of things from Coach Phillips. I took a lot of things as coaches do from a lot of coaches and tried to make it my own. And I had to be myself. And, you know, the history of Wakefield basketball, man, it's the fans want to win yesterday, you know, and it's tough. And then you take a kid from the Valley to become the coach of the school in the Valley. I'm gonna tell you, my first few years was tough because of the fact now what's happening is I'm coaching kids who I went to school with, their parents.
I was getting ready to ask you that.
So now you have that thing of, oh, that's my man Bentley. I went to school, my son gonna be good. And I had to learn how to separate family, friends from my career. And it was a hard thing to do because Hampton, you know it, man. When you winning, oh man, you the
Oh, it's
best thing.
great.
You the
They
best
love
thing
you.
since sliced bread.
They love you.
When you lose it, that barbershop, man, that's a tough seat to sit in when you lose it. And I had to, you know, realize that the neighborhood was really, you know, giving it to me, but because they cared and they wanted me to do good. But they gave it to me and I would hear it. I would hear it in the barbershop, you know. And so I had to learn how to separate, you know, where I came from and building the program, as they say, building the brand and the things that I wanted to do differently. You know, when I got there, my first open gym, I'm just sitting there just watching, and the guys are making 6 and 7 passes before they looking to shoot. I blew the whistle. What are y'all doing? Oh no, coach. You know we passing the ball to, you know, the old coach. We got, nah, my man. 1 or 2 passes, get a shot up. We got to shoot. We want to run. So I had to change mentalities of things what these guys were doing, how hard we practiced, and what it was going to take. And my first year's team was very talented. My second year team, I think, was probably one of the most talented teams we had. They laid the foundation for everything that came later. And
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
yeah,
Because I'm going to ask you about your players in those
yeah,
teams because you have a very phenomenal and impressive record. But I want to go back to that part you talked about taking over for the legendary coach, and he was there for 31 years.
yes, sir.
Be transparent, be honest with me. Did you ever, because you're a very bright person, and I've known you now, you got confidence.
Yeah.
But did you ever doubt it? Did you ever wonder, like, you know, God, is this the right spot for me? Or, you know what, did you say, you know what, I'm going to just be here for a couple of years. This is another job I'm going to look at. Or, you know what, this is where I need to be.
It was, I don't think doubt set in twice in my career. Did doubt set in? And that was after my interview. I felt like my interview was really good. Like I
Mhm,
answered everything like to the T. It was
mhm.
perfect. And when they escorted me out, said, you know, we'll be in touch with you. Thank you. And they shut the door and I went out in the hallway. I was at the old Wakefield. I went out in the hallway and I got behind a wall and I leaned up against the wall and I had to take several deep breaths. And I just felt like I was going to get the job. But then I was like, what in the world? So when Miss Deskins called me a couple weeks later and said, are you ready to be a warrior? I remember telling her, I'm going to have to do all that shit I said in the interview. You know, that was the only first time that I doubted myself. And then, you know, I had to make sure that I was ready. And then my first few years, I had some parents that, you know, were really, because I was young.
Well, that's
And,
why I said, yeah, 30. I
and
mean, it's
yeah, and
young. And, yeah.
these parents were older and they now had an opportunity because Coach Velgen was that guy that you didn't approach Coach Velgen. It was Coach Velgen's way. That's how it was. No, if you didn't like it, bye. And
Mm.
so me, I'm different. I'm very approachable. You can talk to me anytime, all of that good stuff. So I felt like some of the parents were trying to tell me how to do things and things like that. And I started that's when the doubt crept in. Am I ready for this? Because I didn't know how to say no. I raised by my grandparents, respectful to all adults. And so it was hard for me at the time to tell, you know, a parent or whatever that no, we're not doing it this way. Or if I had to discipline somebody, this is what tough love is all about, you know.
Mm.
So those were the only times. But then as the years went on, you know, a little bit of winning helped out a little bit where I didn't have to worry about it as much. And I'm so thankful for my few beginning parents that I had, and of course the parents that I have now that's been supportive of the things that we do, man. So I never really doubted myself. I know I had a lot to learn, and I was going to take those steps because there's guys who gotten opportunities and blew it, and especially young Black men that get these opportunities and then do something to mess it up. I started thinking like, you're blowing it for me, you know, as when I was a JV coach and I watched a young Black coach mess up, but then I'm like, man, you're blowing it for me one day that's gonna have this opportunity.
Yes.
So I look at this now as the next guy that's trying to get a I don't know. There may be somebody saying that I like Coach Bentley and his style and I want to be a coach one day. So I've got to do something. And those kids in my locker room that kids see through you, man. You can't, I'm sorry about this. You can't bullshit.
No, no, you can't.
Because they see right through that. And so I think the thing with us, we're very honest and direct with the kids. They like that. And most kids want you to tell them no. You know, all these parents, go ahead, you can have it, do it. Most kids want you to tell them no when they buck the system.
Yeah.
You know, so I've learned that through the years of how to deal with players, parents, and things like that. But I'll get back to it. Did I see myself at Wakefield for the long haul? I will tell you this. I always wanted to be the head coach at Washington Lee. Always. That's where I came from. That's where I coached at for 9 years. I wanted to. Bobby Dobson and I are 4 years apart. He's my brother. And if I would have sat back and waited for the W&L job to come open, it would have been my job because I was there. Mm-hmm. But if I would have sat back and waited, I'd still be waiting now because Bobby Dobson is the longest tenured coach in Northern Virginia at one high school. He's still at Washington after 27, 28 years. Yep. So I had to, and Bobby gave me the courage to say, it's time. Like, I don't want to lose you. You know, I want you to be my assistant coach forever, whatever, but I want you to go for that interview at Wakefield. You have just as right a chance as anybody else. So Bobby encouraged me to go and get that job. He was pissed when I got it because at the time we were in the same conference. So, you know, going back now to my alma mater and playing against those guys that I had just coached the year before, when I walked in that gym on the visitor side, it was scary, you know, and I know this wasn't big time basketball, but that was my home, man. You cut me blue and grays coming out of my veins. And I always wanted to be, but after a few years at Wakefield and the things that we started building, I knew that there was maybe 2 times in the 19 years I've been at Wakefield that someone had asked me about going and coaching somewhere else. TC Williams' job had opened up a couple times, and there was a few other jobs, but I'm retiring from Wakefield.
Okay.
Whenever that is.
So let's talk about this because normally I can spit this stuff off, but I promise you, when I posted this, I read this several times. You have 325 victories, 7 district championships, 3 regional championships, 9 state appearances. Playing in the final game in 2018, you had a tough loss of Verona. And you also were district coach of the year 8 times and regional coach of the year 3 times. Tony.
Yeah.
You're doing it, man. Like, no, you're doing it. You're doing it, man. I know
thought about
that. And you're humble, and I get it. And when I posted the preview of this interview, the responses, I mean, parents are jumping on there. I'm seeing the goat emoji. And I'm seeing people just open up and, you know, clapping. And I was honored, literally, you know, just to have this interview, this legacy spotlight. I know you're moving forward. Now we're going to talk about your vision and your plans as you move forward. You want to retire there, but just for a moment right now in this legacy spotlight, you reflected on when you first got the job. You remember you took us back to, you know, you took the breath and you got that call. Yeah. Now, 19, almost 20 years later, you have set the standard. You are the standard. You are one of the top coaches in the state. How does it feel, man? I mean, just, you know, when, not that it's over because you got
more to do. No, I still got more to do. But I mean, when you think about that and hearing it, you know, makes you go like, wow. But I got to block that out because I do have more to do. But
Oh yeah, because this guy's coming for your spot. That's
absolutely,
always.
and I want them, and that they should. Yeah, as I'm coming for Coach Belgian's spot. You know, you and I talked about it. Coach Belgian had 443 victories. Why do I know that? Because I want to know how many he had, because I want to pass him one day. It's nothing personal. And I've told Coach Belgian that I want to, and he wants me to break. All records are made to be broken.
No
And
question.
I want to be sitting here 30 years from now, somebody saying, I'm going to beat Coach Bentley's record. But in order to get victories and things of that nature, you have to have great players. You have to have a support system at the school, which I've had the principals, starting with Miss Jackson and Dr. Wilmore that I have now, the faculty, staff, the student body that we've had, the community. And again, I can't say enough about the players, but I'm gonna tell you real quick, D Vic is one guy that doesn't get any credit. It has been with me for 19 years and has been my right-hand man. Is Horace Willis.
Okay.
We've been together, man, since high school. I was a year older than him. He was the man on the basketball team. Again, I had to pass to him. He scored all the points. And he was the man growing up in high school together. And then we started our journey together at Wakefield. One of the first people I called, well, we sitting in the car when I got the job, and I couldn't tell anybody because Ms. Deskins had called me and said, you got the job, but you can't tell anybody. Let me call the other candidates and let them know we're moving forward. So I'm sitting with, Willis, who's my guy, and he knew something was up, but I wasn't supposed to say nothing, man. And he was like, man, talk to me. I said, man, I got something to tell you. He said, you got a job at Wakefield? And I was like, yeah, man, I got a job. So I said, Buck, man, I want you to come with me. And so it was a no-brainer. He's been with me. He's been my right hand. Everybody in the Northern Virginia knows Buck, as my assistant coach. And I told Buck from day one that we are, yes, I'm the head coach, but we're co-coaches. And we've had that relationship from day one. And I'm telling you right now, there's not a better coach, and I'm not calling him an assistant coach. There's not a better coach in Northern Virginia as Buck, because Buck could have had a job anywhere. And he has chosen to ride this out with me. And I couldn't be thankful to not have, and now he always every year tell me he leaving me, he quitting, he leaving every year he going somewhere. But see, I got him now because his son is now a freshman at Wakefield. So I got him for at least 4 more years. Then he can talk about going where he going. But yeah. I'm so thankful, because none of this would be possible if you talk to any kid who's played for us since 2002. It's not just Bentley. It's Bentley and Willis. And I told Buck, I tell this story to everybody. When I got the job, Buck, that when we do well, everybody's gonna praise me. But when we lose, ain't nobody gonna say your damn name. So you just sit back and just do what you're doing. But I couldn't have done half the things. And the other staff guys that I've had, man, I've had guys on my staff that are now head coaches doing. And that's, to me, is what not only am I trying to give to the guys that I'm coaching, but also the guys that are on my staff, to have them aspire to one day be a head coach, and not to sit on my bench and try to take my job, but to learn and take whatever you think is good for me, take it with you. The things you don't like I did, throw them away and start your own. And we built up a little tree of some guys that are in Northern Virginia that are coaching high school basketball now that I'm very proud of. And so, again, you don't get to whatever amount of victories you have and things like that without having a support system around you. It starts with your community first, and then our admin at Wakefield has been phenomenal in the things that whatever we need, they're there to support us. And our families, I could go on and tell you stories about, me fussing at a kid. I got to tell you this, a quick one. One night we're playing, and what my top guy doesn't get the rebound. He lets his kid get the rebound. He goes coast to coast and scores a layup. I call a timeout. I meet the kid at half court. All the other kids go past us because they see my face. I'm red, all in the face. And I'm meeting the kid at half court, and I'm giving him the blues. Now, remember, I'm only 5'6", and the kid's about 6'2", and I'm looking up at him, and I'm giving him the blues, and I'm every word in the book. And I didn't realize it until I got home that night. I was looking at the tape, and that night we had a kid recording that didn't press pause. He recorded and zoomed in on me giving this kid the business. And I looked at it and I said, wow, you know what? I don't apologize too much, but when I go to work tomorrow in the locker room, I'm going to go back and I'm going to apologize to the kid because it didn't look good. I'm young, I'm going after this kid. So I go back the next day in the locker room. And I told the guys, I said, fellas, you guys know I don't apologize for much. You know, I try not to embarrass you in games. I will embarrass you in practice, but I won't embarrass you in a game. And I said, Corey, I can say the kid's name, Corey. I said, Corey Aldridge, I apologize for my demeanor and what I said to you and all that stuff. And I said, I owe your mom an apology as well, too. And so I found his mom. I said, hey, I wanted to let you know that last night my actions were beyond me. That's not me. That's not who I am. I apologize. She looked me right in the face and she said, you should have punched him in the face for not getting the rebound. And that's when I said, I love my Wakefield parents. So that's where we are at Wakefield, man. They respect that. They want you to put your foot in these kids because real life is gonna hit these kids once they graduate.
Absolutely.
And we're not, no one's gonna be around for them to get them out of trouble or write them a pass to class, when they out in the real world messing up. So the parents that I have at Wakefield, man, they trust me, they trust my staff to, take their son for 4 years and help mold them. I'm not saying that that's our job because parents should be first, but to help mold them into young men. And that's what we're all about.
Coach, I was going to ask you, I'm glad you mentioned Corey because, and this is always a tough question for all my guests that are on here discussing their coaching or athletic career, because you never want to forget somebody because everybody I've talked to is class personified, especially you right now. I mean, I just love hearing you talk and your perspective. But when you reflect, even though we're moving forward, you got an upcoming season, Lord willing, with COVID,
Yeah.
and then there's going to be seasons after that. But take some time, man. Are there some guys or teams when you look back, you're like, Vic, man, D, man, 2000 such and such, man,
Yeah.
I just knew we were going to win it. Or this guy right here made me a better coach. Again,
Yeah.
I know 20 more years when you retire, you'll have it written down. You can name everybody, but
Yeah.
just for me and your listeners and the guys that's going to watch this, and I know you can't remember everybody, but just highlight a few people that made you a better coach, or some seasons, briefly that you were like, I thought we just were so dynamic, or a team
Well,
that was resilient that you thought you
yeah.
were going to be terrible, and
Yeah.
y'all went on a winning streak.
That's great to think about that. And you say I probably can't remember everybody. No, I can remember every single body on those teams that bought in to what we were doing. There's
Mm,
kids who didn't buy in, but there's kids who bought in. My first few years, those kids, my first 3 years, I started off with a talented group with 3 sophomores that helped lay the foundation for my coaching career. And that's Kenny James,
hmm
Jeffrey Crawley, and Alex Irma.
hmm
3 sophomores that, I had never seen the likes of this. And we knew as sophomores, Coach Willis and I we talked about it and we kind of rushed them a little bit because they were better than everybody. So they started, and we
Wow.
started off 0-6. And we said, maybe we're putting too much pressure on these guys. And we made them come off the bench and let them learn a little bit. And Kenny James was a point guard that I had for 3 years. He only knew one speed, and that was fast. He couldn't control a game. He couldn't run a play. He was just fast and better than everybody, but didn't know how to make others better. And we worked on that. And by the time his senior year came, he was the player of the year in the district over some talented kids. He averaged 9 points a game, but he controlled the game.
Really?
Oh man, this kid, and he phenomenal. Right now he's my freshman basketball coach. I have not let this kid go to this day because you talk about kids who made me who I am.
hmm
Kenny James' name will always be first, along with Alex Irma, who was my 6'7" white kid. And Wakefield basketball team is predominantly black. Well, we step out on the court with a 6'7" white boy with a ponytail in his head. Everybody called him Sunshine from
Yep.
Remember the Warriors.
Yep.
And so all the cry, Sunshine, and all he doing is dunking on you and shooting a 3 from the outside. Then he go give you a post-up game. He could go. And then I had a man child in Jeffrey Crawley, 6'5", 230, grown man,
Mm.
dunking on people, playing defense. Those 3 kids really laid the foundation down for what it was that we were trying to do. And
Mm.
by the time they were seniors, they ended up putting us on the map. We won 28 straight games which is still a school record to this day. And we ran through the district, we ran through the region, and we got to states, and we played against Henrico in the first round. And then hell of a game. My man Vance, still a coach down in Henrico, hell of a, they had athletes galore. We beat them, and then we moved on. Now you got to remember that's our third year now. I'd never been to a state tournament, anything outside of Northern Virginia. Now all of a sudden we getting on a bus and we traveling down to Richmond at VCU.
Yep.
I got a crew. We 28-0.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. We facing Percy Harvins in Lansdowne. Yo.
Lansdowne.
My man Dwight, who's still there. Congratulations, my man Dwight finally got his first state championship a couple years ago.
Last year, Lansdowne, yeah, he sure did.
So let me tell you, man, Lansdowne loaded. And you knew Percy Harvins was going to be playing on Sundays. You just knew it.
He was so special. He
guys
was
like that, man. But they also had like a few other guys that I don't remember the names, but one guy's last name was Butt. He was real good. They had a point guard that was good. I mean, I tell you, loaded. So anyway, we doing what we do. We kicking their butts. We up on them the whole game. Lansdowne is pressing us the whole game. No one that whole year pressed us because I had Kenny James. I could get a ball to Kenny James. He break any press. It wasn't even funny. He embarrassed you. Lansdowne was pressing, but Kenny was breaking the press as usual. But we didn't realize, as a young in my crew, we didn't realize it was tiring us. It was tiring us down, wearing us down. And by the time the fourth quarter came, we was getting tired. We lost our lead with 1:14. I still remember this like it was yesterday.
Oh,
this was 2005. We lost our lead, first lead at 1:14 and go in the game. And we didn't win that game. Props to Lansdowne. But the support that we got from the school and the community, because you remember it's only 3 high schools. W&L, Wakefield, and Yorktown. O'Connell is a high school, but they're private school. But the 3 high schools, man, when we got down there, man, it was kids from W&L, Yorktown in our fan section. We became one high school, which was Arlington High School. And that was, to me, was the most memorable time. And we lost, but the bond that with those kids that I realized that coaching was more than X and O's. Because when you go into that locker room and you had to console those kids, man, you can't. I get emotional now.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Look at me, D. Got me crying on your show.
No, it's all right. That's what I'm saying. I no, it's okay. It's okay.
Those my guys, man.
And that's and then that is exactly why I asked that question, because when you look at what you and your staff have done, the camaraderie, the standard, and it goes so far beyond the court. You can tell that when you I don't know if you even looked at the comments and what people were saying. People were flooding the post, and people inboxed me. Matthew Hatfield, who covered,
my man.
I mean, he said phenomenal coach, even better person. Media guys don't say stuff like that. Not till you're done, then so. No, it's okay, man, because
it's tough. I mean, I apologize. I'm human, man, but I love my guys, man. And
no, it's okay. I'm the same way.
You think sometimes, man, some people worry about the trophies in the trophy case. I don't worry about the trophies in the trophy case, man. I worry about my guys. And not too many times have people come up to me and say, "What was your record in 2007? They'll say, "How's that kid Alex doing? Whatever happened to the kid George Johnson?" So I want to be able to say what these kids are doing. So, my legacy with my players, man, at the end of the day, I'm gonna be judged, maybe by wins and losses. But for me, it's about my guys. And like I said, the kids who have bought in to what we've tried to instill in those guys, man, these guys are for life. And now I'm at the age now where I'm getting invites to weddings. Just the other day, one of my top players, George Johnson, just had his first daughter, and he's never called me coach. He calls me Pops, and he's like, "Pops, she's here," And so I take the responsibility of being the coach at Wakefield very seriously, because it goes beyond the court, and so there has been many teams, like you said, 9 or 8 state appearances or whatever, many teams that I could say that I remember guys, and I remember all of the battles and things like that. And that I had a team with a Dominic Pham, who was probably one of the top players that ever played at Wakefield. records galore. He's done it all. And in his senior year, after his junior year, he was the player of the year. We beat Potomac. Potomac was loaded. They were undefeated. They ended up winning the state championship that year. And we had most of those guys coming back the following year. This was the state team. We were 22-1 heading into the regionals. And we took Freedom of Woodbridge for light and lost. And I thought that was one of my best teams that I had the chance to win the state championship besides my 05 team. And then in 2018, I had a team that I've seen what a state championship team looked like. This 2018 team didn't look like a state championship team or even going anywhere. That team, we won the district that year. We won the regionals that year. And we found ourselves playing for the state championship with guys that we probably can name 2 or 3 guys off of that team. And we lost to a loaded Varina, again, winning all the way till about 58 seconds left to go in the game with a turnover and a block shot that changed the game. And we lose the state championship to Varina. So you're going to have those teams that you feel like this is it. And then you're going to have those teams where, they disappoint or whatever it may be, man. But at the end of the day, when the horn goes off, it's, what have I done? Or what has, Buck, my staff, what have we done for these kids for lasting memories? And that's, to me, that's what it's all about. That's what it's about.
It is. It is. And I'll just have a few more questions. This has been really, really
fun.
No, for real. This is
got me crying on your damn show, man. What's wrong with you, man?
No, this because you being real. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. And
love my guys.
They're gonna love the fact that you let it be real with them, man. But this question is about your viewpoint and your mindset, because you are in a position of power. You are a head basketball coach. You're an educator. You're a mentor. You're a father figure. But you also are a Black male. And 2020 has been a rough year.
Yeah.
And it's been a challenging year. Even though we're here in good health, we're alive, we can count our blessings. You and I have had some great conversations along with some other coaches.
Yes.
And we've come together and we've talked about what we're going to do and continue to do as men and leaders in our community. What have you learned about yourself in 2020 as a Black male in a position of power and leadership? And what do you plan to do to empower your future players and students, just from a positive level, providing insight and making sure nobody falls victim to, man, this is not fair, or, whatever it is, racial profiling or the hypocrisies and different systems. You hold a position of power. There's no doubt about it. People listen to you. People check for you. How do you plan to move forward in empowering and inspiring the young men and women that you lead and teach?
I think that, every young Black male, whether you're in the nice part of Arlington or the worst part of DC, whatever it may be, have had the talk about how you handle yourself when you encounter with a police officer or a racist person, how you have to handle yourself. So they've had those talks. I think more now what I've done during this pandemic and everything that's been going on, from George Floyd to Breonna Taylor, you name them, what's been going on, I have had the opportunity to educate myself. And because I thought I knew it, and really I don't. And I'm gonna tell you, Dwight, we talked about this before in our Sunday night meetings. And what really got me one night was I'm sitting in front of the TV with my 16-year-old daughter. And we were watching the George Floyd stuff and everything was going on, and it was first coming out. And I looked at my daughter, and I know I told you this story. I looked at my daughter and I said, this reminds me so much of, the Rodney King in 1991. And my 16-year-old daughter looked at me and said, who's Rodney King? And that's when I said, first I was mad. It's like it's like a kid saying, who is James Worthy? What you mean you don't know James Worthy? So I had to take myself aback, and I looked at my daughter and I said, wait a minute, what do you mean you don't the Rodney King? And she says, Dad, they don't teach us this. So I took that upon myself. Okay, I can't let the school system be the ones to teach my kids these things. So now, we cut the TV off and we Googled Rodney King. And so we started watching all of the things about Rodney King and explaining to her that when George Floyd passed, there was being recorded with phones and things. I said, Rodney King, someone was recording from a window with a handheld camcorder. We would have never known about this.
Yep, never
And
known.
so I just started with her about educating her about different things. And then when we watched the old films of people marching and things like that, she said, Dad, they saying the same thing. I said, what are you talking about? She said, no justice, no peace. I said, sweetie, they didn't just start saying that because of George Floyd. This goes back, way back. So I think from that day on, I just started to now do some of my own research, because there's so many other things out there that people telling you this, read that. If it's on the internet, it must be true. You've got to do your own research about different things and educate yourself, because and I don't think in our lifetime, hopefully this generation will be the ones, so their kids, that's what I'm thinking, when it's going to turn around to change all of this. But I just think at the end of the day, I've got to educate myself, and then from what I know, be able to say to the kids what's going on, because at the end of the day, you can't move forward if you don't know what was behind you. So I think that's the main thing, is just I've educated myself a little bit more. I've read up on things that I thought I knew. I was one of the guys, I don't know how many people would come on here and say, oh yeah, I knew what Juneteenth was. I didn't. I had to start going like, wow,
Me
this
too.
is something I should have known.
Yep.
I should have known this. But again, during the pandemic and things like this, you got to spin it some way positive. I started to do more things about research and things to educate myself. So now I can educate these young Black males and females that are coming along, that want to know what's going on and how to handle things. And I don't take that lightly, because I am in a position of a role of power, where I'm at the school, and if one of my players gets in trouble or gets in an incident, the teachers, the principal may call me to come talk to him first. And I take that role. I respect that role, that they come get me first before we start to suspend a kid or whatever, because they know my position, that I can work with the kids. And so I need to educate myself to be able to tell stories about, this happened, and how you handle yourself, because this world, man, we are in a different place. We're in a different place. And, I'm not the most religious person in the world, man, but I find myself praying a little bit more, man, because that's what you're going to have to lean on nowadays, man, because this world is eating people up and spitting you out, so it's tough, but I value my role, and I want to get better. I want to get better at what I can do to help out. And I'm here to learn and here to listen. I think the most important thing is to listen, because, these kids know everything. They know everything, man. So if they just listen and just go from there.
Coach Bentley, Tony, you're a father now.
Yep.
You've been a father. You're a mentor. You're a coach. You're an educator. You motivate people. People look to you for serenity and peace. You have a way about you that's gregarious. People love being around you. Moving forward, last question I have for you. What is your vision, not just for Wakefield basketball and your family, but what is your vision as you move forward for everyone you encounter? And also, what has life taught you thus far? The perspective you have, your life lessons, the game, coaching, the mistakes, the shortcomings, the success, all it out in one. If you were talking to a younger version of yourself, another guy coming up in the valley, a group of kids, a JV team, a freshman coach, getting ready to be a father, like you're a father now, and you're a mentor. You mean so much to so many people.
Yeah.
Take everything I just asked you and just sum it up. And what advice do you have? And what is your vision moving forward as you take the life lessons you learn? What are you going to do moving forward? And what have you learned so far?
Wow, that's a great question. Most people, when they start off saying that's a great question, they thinking.
Well, no, it is. And I always do that, because just to end it with some very honest perspective.
Yeah. I think nowadays things are totally different. When I grew up in the 70s and 80s, times were different. And I talked about at the beginning of the show is, family values and things like that. Neighborhoods were so much together. It's a little bit of difference. I just think from what I wouldn't change anything that I went through, from being a teenage father, to struggling and seeing my family struggle from whether it was drugs or whatever it was. I think most families have issues and things like that. I was no different, but I was able to overcome a lot of that through just hard work. And nobody ever gave me anything. And that's the one thing that I would tell the up and coming young coaches or somebody that's aspiring to be, trying to do things that I've done is don't take a shortcut. You know, you're gonna have to go through some things. I ain't never seen a old dummy. He's been through some things, man, and he can tell you, you just listen. And so I think I would just, tell the kids that don't take any shortcuts. There's people out here that want to help you, but there's also a lot of people out here that's going to steer you down the wrong road to get for their gain. So you've got to be able to watch and be able to figure people out. And you're going to have to judge people on your own. You can say he's a good guy, but you got to figure it out yourself and see where you're coming from. Again, it's a great question, but I would just say to that next person, don't take any shortcuts. And life's not going to be easy. It is not going to be easy. And not to say you want it to be easy, because you want to be able to draw from something. There's something that I'm going through now that when I was 24, I was like, oh, okay. And it's helped me now at the age I'm at now. So I mean, sum it all up, no shortcuts, and ask for help.
Yes.
It's a lot of people that don't ask for help, that there's people that really truly want to help you. But the way the world is now, you can't trust everybody. So I know it's a double-edged sword. I'm telling you to ask for help, but I'm telling you, watch, people, it's tough. This 2020, man, is been crazy. And if we don't stop, listen, learn, it's going to be worse for us. So I'd say educate yourself, and then what you learn, spread the wealth to people that are hungry for your knowledge and that listen to you, man. So I know I probably didn't answer it, but I just say, man, don't take any shortcuts. My role was not that way. And I see guys sometimes they'll get a job, and this was totally different, but like a Steve Nash. Yeah. And I think it, he said it was white privilege, that he got the job and he's going to run with it, whatever. But I think what was lost in some of that, Steve Nash has been working with the NBA guys as a mentor and things like that, but he's never coached, but he got that opportunity. So now it's up to him to do what. But I think if you go through the ranks of what it's like. So when my freshman coach tells me something about, we can't do it, I've been there. I don't want to hear it. My JV coach says something, I've been there. I don't want to hear it. So you want to be able to go through things in life that give you that experience. And so listen, learn, and at the end of the day, man, you're not going to find a guy and a staff like mine that laugh. We joan on our kids, man, and they joan on us back, but we have the respect that's there. And I'm still in contact with a lot of my former players, man, from back in the days to now. And we have a lot of guys that come back and they talk to the guys in the locker room, share their life stories, because they walk the same halls as those kids. That we want them to see people that did the exact same thing, that they made it out, So it's so many things, man. This world is throwing at us, but you better be able to hit a curveball as well as you can hit a fastball.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Well stated, man. And I can just say, man, in talking to you, even prior to this Legacy Spotlight, you are definitely making Wakefield and the Valley and everybody that's been coached and interacted with you very proud. You can tell that. And I'm just honored and proud to now have a relationship with you, man. This has been a great interview. For those watching, I'm sure you were enlightened and inspired by Coach Tony Bentley's wise words, as well as his insight, his perseverance, his dedication to being great. It's bigger than basketball with him, even though he's a phenomenal coach, a great basketball mind. You can tell that he cares about his community and his players. Continue to follow him if you can, because I know he's going to continue to build some great men and women in the community. And for those that support Vicktory Life, I say it every episode, every time we jump on here to feature great guys like Coach Tony Bentley, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. Thank you. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you for having me, man. This was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.